Surprise! Welcome to a pre-recorded subscriber Q&A. I promised all over the place that I would show you guys how to do a 5-thread stitch on the Baby Lock Ovation Serger today. So I decided I would just get on, show you how to do it, and then upload it so you guys can watch it at 1 o'clock. I won't be here live, but that's okay. If you have questions or comments, please post them and I will help you. I'll also be adding this to my Baby Lock Ovation Serger manual series. If you haven't seen that yet, it's full of fun, informative videos going through the manual. So the manual that comes with the Baby Lock Ovation Serger is really, really good. It also comes with a quick reference guide that I think is really one of the best in the industry. I love this thing. If you own the Evolution or the newer Triumph, many of the things that I show in the Baby Lock Ovation Serger manual series will pertain to your serger as well. So let's get into threading the 5-thread. My serger has suffered a few little boo-boos. First of all, you probably can see here that my antenna is broken. I broke it because I wasn't paying attention as I was surging a million miles an hour. The thread got caught and it pulled it down and snapped it. Just a friendly reminder, public service announcement, make sure every now and then you glance up and make sure everything is spooling off properly. Something that can help you would be to use the little plastic cone holders. If you're using big cones, they slide into the big hole like this, and then they'll stay securely on the spool holder. And actually you can put them on the spool holder first, like that, and then put your spool on like that. So that's one way to prevent the thread from getting jammed and tangled, because it will securely hold your spool on the spool holder. The other thing is I dropped my big camera. I think you can see the tip of it right here. It's on a huge tripod and jib, and I was pulling it towards me and it tipped over and it sort of smashed into the back of my serger, and one of my spool pins is broken. I think you can see right here, that's a tiny one. So I'm just going to do the best I can here with the sort of the, I don't know, disabled sections of my serger, but I'll be able to carry on and show you how to do this. So if you want to follow along with me in the serger manual, it's pages 56 and 57. So it gives you really clear instructions there. You can also follow along with the quick reference threading guide. It has it on there as well. Let's talk about what a 5-thread safety stitch is. Basically, you're able to sew a seam with a 2-thread chain stitch and then finish the edge with a 3-thread wide overlock stitch all at the same time. So if you're working with a tried and true pattern, meaning a woven pattern, either a shirt or a pants, and you want to just sew and finish all in the same step because you know you don't have to do any fitting, this is the perfect stitch because it does it all in one shot for you. And depending on where you put your chain needle, you can get a 5/8, 1/2 inch, or 3/8 inch width on this stitch. If you use C1 position, that's going to give you the widest stitch because it's the left needle and it's the farthest away from the knife. If you use a C2, that's in the middle, that's going to give you 1/2 inch. And then if you move over to the right needle, C3, that's going to give you 3/8 of an inch. And I think for the purposes of this tutorial, we're just going to go in the middle. We'll use the C2 position. I'm going to use 5 different colored threads so we can easily see which needle or looper is contributing to each part of the stitch after we stitch a sample. So basically I'm going to put the red here. I'll put the yellow next to it here. All right, I'll use gray in the middle here. And if you're wondering which thread I'm using, I really like Madeira's serger threads. They work really well in my serger and they're kind of smooth and lint free for the most part. Now, I'm not using the specified guides because I have the cracked antenna, but if you look along the antenna, it will tell you where to put your threads. And if you look on the instructions, it also shows you where to put your threads. So you want to make sure that they're as close to being right on top of the spool as you can get. All right, so that's the first step, getting the spools on, getting them on the antenna. The next step is I'm going to open my cover here and let's look and see what the basic setup is going to be. We're going to use 2 needles. So let's get those into position first because they're not in the right position right now. I mentioned that I was going to use so let's get the needles into position. I'm going to take out the overlock needle here that's on the left, and I'm going to switch it to the middle C2 position in the front here. Now you want to make sure you can see the top of the needle in that little window. That's how you know you have it inserted properly. My overlock needle is going to be in the O1 position. So actually I should have just taken that out. So let me move this over here. So O1, like this. So now I've got my needles into position. So that's the first thing I'm checking. The next thing I want to check here is I'm going to turn the serger to the side so you can see the knobs. We want to make sure the width setting, which is this top knob, is set on the widest setting. So I'm putting it at 7.5. And I don't know if you can see here, if I turn this knob, you can maybe see the fact that the knife moves back and forth. So when it's on 7.5, it's got the widest cutting width. So I've got that set at 7.5. The next thing I'm going to do is set my stitch length somewhere between 2.5 and 4. So I'll go with 3. So I've got those two things set properly. The next thing I want to do is I'm just going to push my serger over here so I can show you the stitch selector. The stitch selector is set on A, so I'm going to put that on A. And my tension for my chain stitch on the opposite side, my chain needle per tension is right here. So I'm going to put that on 5. And then the chain looper tension is going to be set to the chain stitch spectrum on this dial. You can go from chain stitch to cover stitch. So I'm just going to put it over here for now and we'll see how that works out in the chain stitch section. So now you can see we've got A for stitch selector. I've got my chain needle tension. I've got my chain looper tension set on chain stitch. I've got my chain needle set at 5, and I've got all the settings correct. Now we're going to thread the machine. We're going to start by threading the loopers first. We're going to start with the upper looper. So my upper looper thread is going to be gray. So we're going to put it in the upper looper. And then I'm also going to get my lower looper thread so they're both here together. And I'm going to click that one in as well. Then I'm going to set my machine on threading. So this little dial right here, surging threading, I'm going to put that on threading, and then listen for the click. I'm going to turn my hand wheel towards me until the air tubes close. So I'm just turning it slowly towards me. Listen for the click. Do you hear that? Now I can't turn my hand wheel because it's locked in place, and I've closed the tubes to use the air feeding system here. I'm going to shoot the I'm just going to give myself nice tails. I'm going to shoot it through the upper looper. Okay, so you can see it pops right out over here. I'm just going to put it directly back. Then I'm going to do the lower looper. All right, so now those are threaded. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do the chain looper. So now the chain looper, I'm going to turn this to the side so you can see. The chain looper goes through this hole in this guide. Okay, so you stick it through this hole. Then it comes down behind the metal clip like this, under there, and then up and around into the tension unit. and it goes through this little guide right here. Okay, then I'm going to stick that through the air feed. Now, where did that thread go? It didn't, we can't see where it popped out. So let's take a close look at the other side over here. If I open the side door, you can see the thread for my chain looper went into this little box right here. So see, there's a little, about a 4-inch tail there. I'm just going to leave that in there, but I wanted to show you where it comes out. Make sure that your wave overlock lever is on overlock. Between you and me, I've never done the wave stitch, so I always forget to mention that because I've never changed it to wave. Someday I'll experiment with it, but make sure your little lever is on overlock. To close the door here, you have to switch your threading lever back to surgeon, and that will allow you to shut the door. All right, so now we're going to, oh, we're not done threading. We have to thread the needles. So let me put this back down again. I got all excited. So I'm going to just stick my thread in here. In the overlock needle goes like that. So through here, up and over here, behind the thread guide here. And then we're going to thread that needle. And then in the back, let me just show you. This can be a little funky back here. I want to show you this. These metal clips are the thread guide for the chain needle. And what you want to do is you want to take your thread. We're going to be in the middle groove. So I'm going to stick it, click it in, and it clicks under. So it clicks under and goes into that little space, and then it comes down like that. Now, if you're having trouble getting your thread in there, I have a tutorial showing you how to loosen that. I'll put it in the description below. Then the thread comes down underneath this clip, back up on over that metal piece and back down, and then it goes in the thread guide in front of the chain like that. Okay, so I've got both, you can see I've got both of my threads tucked under the little guides at the base of the needle bar there, or at the top of the needle bar. Now I'm gonna raise my needles as high as I can, put my presser foot down. And by the way, you always want to thread your serger with the presser foot up because the tension discs are open, the thread goes through. When you put your presser foot down, it clamps on the thread. So always make sure your presser feet are up when you're threading. Once you get to the needle section, you can put it back down. All right, so now I'm gonna thread my needles. Oops. This is always the fun part, threading the needles. And when you're threading your needle, make sure you're not wrapping the thread around the needle. Make sure it's just going, you know, front to back. Like that. And then let me get my overlock needle threaded. All right, so once they're threaded, what I'm going to do is, again, make sure they're not looped around the needles. I could thread my serger 100 times and off camera and I wouldn't get this twisting. Today my thread is just not agreeing with me. It's looping around the needle. You got to really make sure it's not, because it won't stitch right if it is. All right, I think I've got that set now. All right, they're straight through. I'm going to pull all my threads to the back like this, and you should have 5 threads, right? Because we're doing a 5 thread, and I'm going to stick them underneath the presser foot and off to left. And actually, there's 4 threads on top and 1's in the box still. All right, so now my threading is complete. So now what we're going to do is we're going to test stitch this. This is the exciting part. I'm going to start with both my needles sunk into the fabric, and then I'm just going to start stitching. Oh, I got to put my knife back up too. All right, so this is interesting. Look at what you get for a chain. You get the chain stitch and you get the 3-thread wide to finish the edge. So let's take a look at this. Okay, you can see that I've got a nice, it looks like just a standard straight stitch there. And then if we turn it over, you can see it looks a little bolder because that's the back side of the chain stitch. And there's my lower looper. My upper looper is gray. Lower looper is green. My chain needle is red. And my overlock needle is yellow. It's hard to see. So the blue thread is woven in to the back. The looper thread on the chain stitch, you should not really see that. So notice all I can see is the red chain needle thread. If you see loops on the blue chain looper, tighten that. But that's a good tension there. Interestingly, when I started stitching, it took a minute for the chain looper to catch on. That's why I always do a sample on a scrap before I start working on my garment, just to make sure everything is correct. The other thing I would say here is this, my tension looks a little loose here. See how the loopers are hanging off the edge of the fabric? What I would do here is, there is this little knob right here. That's a fine-tuning adjustment for the tension. I'm going to turn it towards the plus a little bit and let's try it again. I'll do it on this side so we can see the difference. All right, so you can see that fixed my tension problem. So if we look at this little end here, you can see, you know, loose here, but right on there. Okay, so remember you have that little tension adjustment inside that you can play with. So that is how you sew a 5-thread. And just to finish up this little tutorial, I'm going to cut it apart so we can see what it looks like from the right side. So if we open this up, you can see we've got a nice secure chain stitch seam with the finished edge all in one step. So that is how you do a 5-thread, how to thread it, how to sew it, and how it looks to fine tune the tension. If you have any questions or comments, please post them below and I will help you. I hope you enjoyed this little pre-recorded subscriber Q&A. On Friday, join me for FabFit Friday, 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, live. I'm going to be working on my bias top with sleeves. So that's what I'm going to be doing on Friday. Plus, I have a little Christmas holiday gift idea for you as well. So thank you for watching and have a wonderful rest of your day.